I'm Mr. Post, and in this lesson I teach my first grade students how to create a clay caterpillar from just spheres. The thing I like about this lesson is that it gives kids practice creating geometric forms, spheres and cones, and they learn the basic principles for joining clay together. They learn how to score, slip, and smooth. This lesson will show you how to make a clay caterpillar using 5 spheres. So the first thing you need to do when you get your chunk of clay is tear off some chunks so that you can create spheres. And so just roughly get them equal. Then the next step is to begin rolling these chunks into spheres. Now, what really works well when you're working in a classroom setting is to have what I like to think of as a model sphere or a target sphere, so that when kids come up in class they can sit at their own table and they can go, alright, did I make this sphere large enough? And if they didn't, then they can just add a little bit more clay, make a larger sphere. And so once they've got a sphere that's pretty close, then they can go back to their seat and they can make 4 more of those. And so that's the process. You just keep making spheres until you have 5 of them. Now, in the times where I have had kids just make them on their own, they typically want to work way too small. And so that's the idea behind the model sphere, is so that you can come on up and see what will work as a good starting point. Now, when things go in the kiln, they heat up. And so if you hold your hands like this and start to move them, what you'll see is that your hands move fairly easily. If you take your fingers and interlock them and then go to wiggle them, you'll notice that they don't move as easily. That's the idea behind scoring clay. And so scoring clay means making little lines in the clay with a tool to kind of create little finger marks so that this clay sticks together. Slipping clay makes the clay a little bit slippery, a little bit sticky, and then you push these 2 things together. And so the next step after you've got your spheres made is that you need to score them and slip them in order to get all 5 of them pushed together. And so you just keep scoring both parts. A little drop of water is plenty. Push them together. Score this part, score this part. A little drop of water is plenty right there, and you push this together from the ends. And you don't want to push it too much, you don't want to smash your caterpillar, but you do want to compress it a little bit so that those spheres stick together. Now what I like to do is I like to tap it a couple times to get a little bit of a flat bottom, and then flip this over, and this is called smoothing clay. And by smoothing this clay, you really help this clay stick together. So these 5 spheres will stick together a lot better if you smooth them. And so there's this little poem that I have that I use to remind you to score, slip, and smooth. And so it goes like this. Scoring is boring, but I make lots of lines. Slipping is dipping, I like it just fine. Smoothing is soothing, it relaxes my mind. And so you can relax your mind when you turn in your clay sculpture if you've done all those, because everything will stick together. So now we've got 5 little spheres that are all stuck together. The next step in this process is to create a little face. And so I like to make 2 more tiny spheres. And so these are much smaller than the first ones we made. And then anything that gets joined together in clay gets scored and slipped. And so I don't score these little spheres, but I do flatten them just a little bit. And this is kind of like making headlights on a car. So you flatten these a little bit, and then you push them onto the clay. And so these start to become the eyes. And then you take a pencil and you push in to give this caterpillar 2 little pupils in his eyes. So now he can begin to look at you. After that, you need another small sphere. And so this one, I like to elongate it, and by elongate I mean just roll it in your fingers to make it kind of like a jelly bean shape, and then score right below your eyes and put a little nose on right here. So now your caterpillar has a little nose and 2 eyes. Next, I like to add a mouth. And so the same thing, make a sphere about roughly the same size you made for the eyes. Elongate that a little bit. Score where it's going to go. And then put a little line right here. And so now I've got a mouth on here, and the back of your popsicle stick tool is fantastic for pushing a negative space opening in here. So you're just going to push a mouth in, and if you wiggle this, you can change the shape and expression of your caterpillar's mouth. You can even use a pencil if you like, and wiggle that mouth open. And so now my caterpillar's got a little open mouth. He's looking at you. If you wanted to, you could make a little tongue coming out of there or some little chomping teeth. Now, we need to add some spikes to our caterpillar to give it some details. And so I have a little poem about forms. A lot of the lessons in first grade are about working with the basic forms: spheres, cubes, cylinders, cones. And so here's the poem about spheres. A sphere is a ball, catch it or it will fall. A cylinder is a tube, a dooby-dooby-doob. And so to make these little spikes, what we're going to make is some spheres. And then what I like to do is just kind of pinch the top. And this turns them into little tiny cones or little Hershey Kisses. And what you can do next is you can just kind of tap the bottom. And so wherever you'd like to put some little spikes on your caterpillar, you just score right there, drop of water, and push your little spike on. And if you've noticed on the TV, a lot of the caterpillar images we've looked at, caterpillars have these spikes. It's kind of a defense mechanism against birds. Birds probably don't want to eat some caterpillar that's all spiky and hard to swallow, so these caterpillars try to use that to their advantage. So I like to make a pattern when we go, so I'm going to do 2 spikes, then 1, and so I'm making another little sphere, kind of rolling it, pinching it, tapping it until it turns into a cone. Push that down. Same thing. So on this next one, I want to return to the pattern of making 2 cones. A little bit of water on each one. Just squeezing these little cones, placing them on the caterpillar. And so you can kind of see how he's getting some little spikes as he goes. And then lastly, I think I'll just finish this with 1 little spike on this last part. Now, one of my students showed me a really cool trick to make legs on the caterpillar. And in the past I'd tried making legs on the bottom of the caterpillar, but the kids tended to work and smash those down. So what this kid did was this kid made a little series of spheres. So 4 for each side. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm rolling out some spheres. And so one of the things that I like about these sphere projects is that they really get kids a lot of experience making things, making 3D objects. So right here what we're going to do is on the side of the body we're going to score where the legs would go. Drop of water on each little sphere, and then right here you just push down like this. Here we have the completed caterpillar. He's got an interesting face. He's got some interesting spikes on top for defense. He's got 4 simple little legs that are made from spheres. Thanks for watching. Go make something, and I'll see you soon.